Welcome to Talking Devils. This is your the lot pod. I'm back with Talking Devils, your largest independent Manchester United podcast. I'm Harry from Fan Owned United. Again, joined this week with Steve and Peter. Just to give you guys a bit of background about us again. I have a season ticket in the Stretford end. I've done so over 10 years. Peter is a match goer, lifelong United fan and football author. And Steve, again, lifelong fan and has had a season ticket at Old Trafford for more than 25 years. If you are joining us today live on YouTube, thank you very much. Please do join in with any questions you may have in the comments. They're always encouraged. And if you're following us on any podcast after today's gone out live, do leave any comments and we will obviously get back to you on the next pod. So yeah, lots to cover off today, gents. A very interesting week coming up with obviously the FA Cup final. The Premier League season has come to an end and lots of other kind of comments have come up from Ten Hag especially and a few other outlets. But what we'll do is we'll start off with a brief review of the games this week. Obviously, first and foremost, fantastic news. We've qualified for the Champions League. As we mentioned last week, we just needed that point, but ended up winning both of the last two games of the season, which I think Ten Hag was going for because he wanted to match the home record of the amount of home wins in a season, which we managed to get. So yeah, Steve, we'll start with you this week. What were your thoughts overall of the last two games?
Hi. I think the Chelsea game, it was a funny one. I think we obviously scored 4 goals, which is quite rare these days for us to get more than 1 or 2 goals, which, really nice. But again, the XG was actually 5.31. So we quite drastically underperformed it once again. Obviously, the amount of chances that we had, Kepa made some great saves. Especially from Garnacho, notably at the end, where he kind of saved it with his leg and went over. But I think it was, and I've seen this opinion quite a lot on social media, that it seemed to be a bit of a like testimonial-esque kind of game, where it was pretty much over for both teams. Obviously, Chelsea are just kind of limping over the line at the end of the season. We only needed a point, and once I think it went 2-0 up, then I think all intensity stopped. I think our players are kind of trying to save themselves for the cup final and kind of not go into tackles. There's less intensity. You just think earlier in that season, if it was Liverpool playing Chelsea, they would have scored 8 goals, something like that. So I was a little bit disappointed that we didn't really go and score 5 or 6 because I really think we could have. With the Fulham game, I think we started quite slowly. The penalty save really changed the game, and then we kind of kicked into gear. And then two decent goals, a really nice ball from Fred for the Bruno goal, but got quite lucky for the first goal, I think, as well. But overall, very convincing and fully deserved. Yeah,
and a very rare David De Gea penalty save. Hopefully will give him a bit of confidence. If the FA Cup final goes to penalties, who knows? That was a bit of a plus. How about yourself, Peter? What were your thoughts and any kind of standout performance for you over those last 2 games?
Kind of just echoing what Stephen was saying there. I did have the real testimonial end of season game. We got lucky in a sense in our last few games. Like we mentioned, the fact that teams had nothing really to play for. And like Steve was saying, I think the Chelsea players just want the season to end and just be forgotten about for good. And half of them are leaving anyway. And Fulham, maybe, like there was a feeling that Fulham might have revenge on their mind. I think Ten Hag mentioned that as well. So it was kind of funny in a sense, but like Mitrovic would have loved to have like rammed it down United fans' throats and missed a penalty. Like I think it was his 4th miss of the season, which is a Premier League record. So it's almost like De Gea. It's funny that like De Gea made the save against the guy who missed the most, but it was De Gea's first save. I saw on Twitter it was his first save in 9 years at Old Trafford from the penalty, which is insane. And I think the last one I can remember him saving was from Lukaku in the FA Cup semi-final. But it was good for him. Didn't do great for the first goal. Didn't get off his line, hence Maguire had to head it out. But the Fulham game was on the season. Huge amount to talk about. Thought Sancho played well and got a nice goal. And as Steve said, like Fred, like not exactly a Fred pass, showing off that he actually is a Brazilian with that through ball. And then Chelsea, it was their first time we scored 4 goals in the league this season, which was nice to mark off and a nice way to close out and get Champions League in a bit of style. But it didn't feel like a 4-1. Like we didn't play that well. It was just Chelsea are so bad. And they did miss we gave them a lot of chances, especially in the first half, which was kind of worrying. So I wouldn't read. It's obviously good that we're going to the cup final off 4 wins in a row, and we closed out, got 3rd place, which is important. But kind of hard to read into those games because the intensity just won't be anything near that a cup final will be. But good to get through them and have bar Anthony, who might be back. But we got through, especially the Fulham game. I was worried when I saw the lineup that so Casemiro or Rashford, one of them's getting injured or Casemiro's getting another red card. So, nice way to finish the league season.
Yeah, exactly. I was quite surprised as well, to be honest, with a few of those picks from Ten Hag on Sunday. I thought maybe he would have rested a few, but like I said, at the same time, I think he was really gunning for that record. I think maybe just to lay down a mark, to be like, this is my first season, got Champions League, got the record home wins, got the Carabao Cup and an FA Cup final. And that's why he went for it. And that's kind of been the really the feel from him throughout the season. He's not really rested players. Like another game that comes to mind was Reading in the FA Cup. Like when we were playing relentless games, he would pretty much, not rotate too much. But yeah, I mean, I think you guys summarized it well. I mean, to be quite frank, I don't think we actually played very well against Chelsea, to be honest. I mean, that Mudryk chance that he had, I mean, they were slicing through us, pretty easily and created some pretty clear-cut chances. I mean, I don't know what's happening with that guy, £90 million or whatever it was. I mean, makes all of our players look like absolute bargain. At the same time, they also had one, I think, a header with Pulisic.
I think it was
Havertz. Havertz. Yeah. So, I mean, I think 4-2 really flattered us, to be frank. And yesterday was a better performance. I would say again, like you guys mentioned, Sancho. Really glad that his performance on Sunday was better, because we're going to really need him obviously now for the cup final, which is what we'll be moving on to next. A nice little way to get into this segment. So obviously FA Cup final looms this Saturday, the first ever Manchester derby for the FA Cup final being made. There's a bit of fuss around it. I think the FA Cup, I saw on Twitter, has already been etched in with Manchester. They like to make it, any kind of extra little whatever fanfare, a bit of extra fuss. So it's been etched in. Just the second part awaits. I personally, being the realist that I am, I think it's going to be pretty difficult to win on Saturday. What I was really happy with, though, was that little rallying cry that Ten Hag kind of put in. I'm really, really kind of keen on all these little traditions, like Fergie used to do that address, the last game of the season. Ten Hag looks like he's carrying it on. And put in that little rallying cry for all the fans to get behind the boys, and they'll do whatever they possibly can to win the cup final. But if I was a betting man, I would say, if City are at their top level, they're going to be pretty difficult to beat. And me personally, I haven't really seen a performance in a while where I thought, wow, we're kind of above and beyond and we've been outstanding, which is a bit of a double-edged sword because, it's good to be winning when you're not playing great either. We've ground out a few results recently, but we're going to have to be, we're going to have to give a proper special performance, I think, to beat them. So we'll start again with you, Steve. I mean, what do you think of the chances we've got to win on Saturday?
I am I'm less optimistic than normal. If someone said to you right now, get to a penalty shootout, I'd take it all day. I think, City have just been absolutely relentless in this last in the kind of closing stages of the season in all competitions. They've got the squad to deal with the build-up of games. None of the players are really getting injured. I know they've had a couple of tiny little tweaks in the last couple of games, but they've not had any proper injuries this season. Every single one of their players are playing as if they're in their prime. They've adapted game by game. They can pick a different lineup every single game. They just have that kind of depth, and it showed. They've managed to really keep up the kind of fifth or sixth gear in the second half of the season. Every single game, doesn't matter if it's against Leeds or Southampton or Real Madrid. They absolutely spanked Real Madrid 4-0, and we're going to come up against them and hopefully do a bit of a job. But I'm not very optimistic. But as I say, I think we can always surprise someone.
Yeah. I've managed to get a ticket, one of the lucky ones. So I'll be going down on Saturday. And I saw a tweet from Gary Neville, and I think that's kind of where I'm at the moment. I think he said he bought a ticket as well. I don't know if that's true or not, but he said bought a ticket, going to Wembley on Saturday. 95% chance we're going to lose, but I'm there for the 5% chance that we might win. And it's I kind of feel the same. But how about you, Peter? I guess what are your thoughts on Saturday? Not only about our chances, but how do you think Ten Hag might set up our team and what strategy you might have to try and get that win?
Yeah, I wouldn't often agree with Gary Neville these days, but I think 5% is pretty accurate. Like you're saying, it feels like we're kind of limping into it, and City are like, it feels like City are in mid-season. Like they were just kind of chilling until the run-in, and now they just really got going. So it'll be difficult for us, obviously. But I'm more like, we still are like a big team and a big club. We came third, we won a Carabao Cup. It shouldn't be going there and losing 4-0. Like, it is a cup final still. It is a derby. It is at a neutral venue, so there's no real excuse to go there and just roll over for City. Although I do have the fear of because we've lost games like that this season, that the repeat of the 2019 FA Cup final when they beat Watford 5-0, and it was all over pretty quickly. I just think we were you've got Varane and Casemiro there. That's kind of where all my hope lies. Being these guys know how to play finals. They do step up. But yeah, it's hard to know, especially with it's hard to predict what you're going to get with this team. Still, you don't have the trust for us to show up in the final. So I don't know exactly what will happen, but it feels likely City will win. And just on the tactical setup side of things, I think most of the team picks itself based off injuries as much as anything. Obviously, De Gea will go on goals. I'd imagine Wan-Bissaka starts. Dalot got rested against Fulham, and you'd rather Wan-Bissaka just for the defensive side of things going against Grealish, who I think if Wan-Bissaka's on it, he can handle Jack Grealish, hopefully. Varane, Lindelof, Shaw. I'd play Fred in midfield just for, I can see Eriksen getting overrun. The way City play with Rodri and John Stones sitting now, and the Gundogan, De Bruyne, Grealish, and Bernardo Silva all kind of roaming in the middle. I just don't think Eriksen can keep up with that. So you kind of want someone in there who just will just get around the pitch. And
do you think since his injury as well, Eriksen's not really?
Oh, he's been awful.
He's fallen off a bit.
I just think as well, like the Wembley pitch is huge, and like it just doesn't suit him. I think Fred started when we beat them in January as well, so it probably makes sense to play Fred. And I was thinking maybe with Joe Fred Eriksson in midfield, put Bruno out right, but then you come on Bruno in the middle anyway. And the front three, like, it's the only three attackers we have basically, because you won't start Garnacho. It won't happen. Which is kind of annoying because you're kind of like, it'd be great if you bring Garnacho on with say 25 minutes to go, but there's no point in bringing it. Like, we could be 3-0 down by then. You never know. So I don't know how exactly we set up, because if you press City, they're just going to ping it around you and just push it in. Like, you've got Haaland running. But if you sit back, you've got De Bruyne, Gundogan, Bernardo Silva just like pinging balls for Haaland. They will find a way. So they don't really have like a weakness. I think we have a puncher's chance. And it's really on Ten Hag, and he just pulls him out of the bag, really. But I just don't think it's more a matter of like, give them a game. Like, don't be going. It's still a cup final. Like, you got to turn up.
I think he's going to play Bruno on the right.
Really?
I just think with Sancho, I don't think he's got the fight in him to play in that kind of game. It seems, if Sancho comes up against any sort of physicality or intensity or anything like that, he kind of falls off. So, for me, I'd be having Bruno in the middle with, on the right. And if it's actually me, I'd actually have McTominay and Eriksen. McTominay, Fred, and Casemiro, just for some, athleticism and just some legs to get about and hassle and harry. And I know they're not the most technically astute players, but if you've got, for example, Rashford and Martial up top and kind of keep them up top with Bruno coming back and helping out, then I think there's a much more of a chance. But that's just me, and I don't know as much as Ten Hag. So.
I think that would have been a shout if McTominay would have had a bit more game time recently, because, like you said, those three could cover a lot of the pitch, press in the middle. But I just think because he hasn't had that kind of, he's not really match sharp or to start. I don't think he'll go McTominay. I'll be honest, I honestly don't know how he'll go with the front three. I think there's a possibility of him sticking with Rashford, Martial, and Sancho on the right. I think that might be most likely. I don't know, Steve. I just think Bruno is just a little bit more influential in the middle sometimes.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely.
He pulls the strings a little bit more.
I think the only thing with Bruno is his discipline defensively just isn't there. Maybe on the right when he can actually just come and track back and everything, and he does do the work, but in the middle he goes wandering a lot. And against City, they play 4 centre mids, don't they? They play the 2 defensive midfielders and then the 2 attacking midfielders with the winger on the striker, and it's just even with a normal 3 engine midfield, you're still not going to be able to keep up with four midfielders. So I think Bruno really needs to either step up and be really disciplined defensively through the middle, or be put on the right.
I agree on the Garnacho point that you mentioned, Pierre. I don't think he'll start him. Do you know when he signed his contract as well? When Garnacho signed his contract, he did say, obviously he's great talent, etc. But he just needs to learn on his decision making. He needs to improve on his kind of tracking back and his defensive kind of decision making. That in itself is kind of a big giveaway. I think he doesn't not trust him, but I guess you could say he doesn't trust him to track back and be astute enough to start an FA Cup final. I personally think the plan Ten Hag is going to put in place is like, look, guys, try and stay in the game with half an hour to go. Simple as. Even if we're 1-0 down, don't panic. Just stay in the game.
Mm-hmm.
We can't, have a repeat of how we were at City away, or, even worse, Liverpool away, where we just, absolutely got overran and we couldn't get back in the game. But if we're 1 behind, even 2 behind, maybe stay in the game till half an hour to go. He'll bring on Garnacho, and then we'll go a little bit more hell for leather and see how it pans out from there. But I mean, it's going to be a tough one. I mean, the atmosphere hopefully will be lively. Like I said, Manchester derby. Don't know how everyone's going to make it down with the train strikes, but I'm sure it will be packed out. And like you said, Peter, neutral venue. Anything can happen. I mean, if we're going to beat them in a competition, those are one of the kind of games where, like I said, anything can happen, right? In a cup final, maybe they'll be feeling a bit more of the pressure as well, with the fact that the treble's on the line, and they're going to want to be able to kind of replicate that. So who knows? We have slightly less to lose, maybe, but obviously, I think if they play at 100%, and even we're at 100%, based on how they've been playing over the last kind of 3 to 4 months, that there's only going to be one winner. So yeah, let's hope these boys do a job. And obviously, next week we'll go over all of the cup final points in great detail. I'm sure there's going to be lots to talk about. But yeah, where are you boys catching the final?
I've somewhere in London. I don't know where exactly, but it's too expensive to get a ticket, I think, at this point. But I think the Torch is where the United fans go beforehand, so might head out that way. And yeah,
I think you're going to need to get there early, mate. Last time I just bypassed the Torch now because like they're literally there from I think like 9-10 in the morning.
Yeah. It'll be manic anyway. But yeah, like you said, the neutral venue thing, like there will. But it's like City weren't selling their tickets fully out until a week or two ago. I don't even know if they sold them out. I just think there'll be more United fans there in general, and even like in the neutral sections. You would think, and it means more. Actually, a lot of fans, City fans, fan base isn't exactly intimidating. So I think United fans, it should be like, yeah, we're playing for like a lot of history and holding on to the treble. But I think the fans will really bring the noise.
Let's hope so. How about you, Steve? Where are you catching it?
I'm watching it in Manchester. Yeah, I'll be going to one of the local beer houses. Unfortunately, there's going to be two of our mates who are going with our City fans. So yeah, it's going to be one of those, and one of them isn't the best of winners. So yeah, I think if I might have to sit on the opposite side of the table to him, but yeah, we'll see. Yeah, it's just going to be a bit of a mad one.
Yeah, we'll see indeed. So yeah, that's moving on then. Another point I wanted to cover off is Ten Hag had a interview over the weekend with the Times, and there were some quite interesting comments that were pulled out of that interview. It was a sit down, and it seemed like, for the first time in a while, Ten Hag kind of let his guard down. And there were a few kind of messages in there which were, let's say, not as straightforward as normal as is a standard shutdown kind of answers that he usually gives. First and foremost, he made a few comments on De Gea. I took a snippet out of the interview, and basically he was asked about playing out from the back and how important that was to him specifically. And he said that it's not what I want. It's more what top football demands nowadays. If you observe the biggest teams, you have to be capable of playing from the back and use your keeper as a +1. Otherwise, it's very simple for opponents to put you under pressure. He did say De Gea, had to step up, and he showed progression in a number of games. It was then asked if De Gea would stay next season. He said, yes, I will not say, however, he'll always stay as my number one, because in a club like United, there must be competition in all positions. So, as I said, slightly difficult to read between the lines. What would you make of that, Peter?
I think it's pretty obvious that he wants another keeper coming in. Like we said before, I just don't see the point of if a keeper that does not suit your style, his contract is out, what is the point of giving him a new one? But yeah, I think it's like everything he said in that interview. There's a lot of like pointed remarks of like, yeah, we need investments. So I don't think we're spending big on the keeper this summer as stands. But if we can get someone like guys you mentioned before, like I'd have Keylor Navas in a heartbeat. So yeah, he must want someone. But unless he's like, yeah, he like De Gea's not my guaranteed number one, meaning that like she's giving like Jack Butland and Heaton like they've got their competition. But yeah, it'll be I think we're getting a new keeper, but who knows who it is.
Your choice, if you were the man who had the checkbook, who would you go after?
I'd go like just David Raya from Brentford. I'd say costs 30 million probably a year in his deal. He's already confirmed leaving. So that makes sense. And he's played in England basically his entire career. So it just seems like an easy transition. And I just don't think, even if we get bought out, if we get taken over by then, I just don't think we have the money, or we just don't have the money to be putting like 60 million on a keeper. So we've kind of have to be a bit prudent and try and find some value in the market. So I go Raya,
yeah. How about you, Steve? What did you think of that? Those comments in particular from De Gea, on De Gea.
Yeah, I think Peter said it all really. There's a lot of kind of double meaning behind a lot of what he's been saying, in that we need to spend money, and it's not even double meaning. A lot of the time, he has just said we need investment, we need better players if we want to compete and step up. So everybody knows, even De Gea knows that he's not got long left at United. Hopefully, if he lasts this summer, then it'll be next summer he's replaced. So I think, yeah, with that, if a large chunk of our budget is going to go on to more essential positions, i.e. striker, central midfield, maybe a little bit more attacking depth, I think he's got one more year left. Yeah, with me and the keeper, for me, Raya, I think he's still a little bit small. I know he's done it.
I saw a tweet of yours a little while ago.
Yeah, he's done it in the Premier League, and he's played well, and he's a great shot stopper. But so is De Gea. He's good at his one-on-ones. But Raya, he's actually shorter than De Gea. Similar kind of build. He might be a little bit stockier, but if we want someone, we want someone like Nick Pope, just a big brute of a guy, 6'4", 6'3", who can just come and dominate a penalty area. Obviously, stats don't tell the whole story, but I think that Diogo Costa in Portugal for Porto has been having a great season. In terms of he's kind of in the top percentile for a lot of essential goalkeeping stats for the top 5 leagues. And I think I've seen some reports today in the Portuguese media through Twitter. I don't troll the Portuguese media, but yeah, I've seen that he may very well have played his last game for Porto. So I know Chelsea are looking for a keeper, and if someone like that, 22, 23 years old, already number one choice for his national team, had off the back of a great season, is going to leave his club potentially for 60 million or something like that. If we can get 30 for Henderson, then it's only a net 30 mil outlay for a keeper who could very well be our keeper for the next 10 years. So yeah, David Raya is an option, and a cheaper option. But if we have the budget, then I'd potentially try and stretch for someone who's got a little bit more longevity and a bit more of a frame.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm also a really big fan of David Raya, only because my parents live not too far from Brentford's ground, so I go and watch them as well now and then. And I've never really watched a game where, one thing I've noticed about Raya, I've never actually seen him make like a howler, like as in you've like a standard De Gea howler that he made at Brentford, or something like that. And I know you mentioned his height, but again, it might be difficult to judge because Brentford have very big centre backs as well, Pontus Jansson, Ben Mee.
Mm-hmm.
But from corners and situations like that, it doesn't seem that he isn't in command as such. Seems to be quite safe. Obviously, displaced De Gea in the Spain squad. and his distribution is really good. Obviously, a lot is said about Costa as well as how good he is. I'll be honest, I don't really watch much of Porto, so I can't really tell. The only thing, like I guess Peter mentioned, is we might be able to get him on for a slightly cheaper price. So he has outlined, and I think Thomas Frank even said again yesterday. He said if we've got one player to sell, the only one is Raya, really, because he's been quite open about it. He's rejected 2 contracts. He wants to move on. He's only 27, so I know you mentioned about longevity. So I mean, he could easily play to like 35, 36. So he's got a few good years in him. So I think both are good options. Just depends how much I guess the club want to spend on a goalkeeper.
I think
the positions being priorities like striker, etc.
So just on the height thing and the size thing, I don't think that's really like De Gea's issue. It's more just like his own like determination to get out of his box, and he's not. He just is a bit of a coward when it comes to claiming balls and getting in front of defenders and that sort of thing. So I think it's more of a mentality thing than
he got knocked over by Pulisic, didn't he, in the Chelsea game?
Yeah,
exactly. He got absolutely bullied by him, and he's about 5'9".
De Gea plays for fouls where, like Harry was saying, like Brentford do. Like he's come up through like the championship and so on. Like he's played against like big brute strikers and teams that just launch the ball the whole time.
He was at Blackburn before, I think.
Yeah. He's a proper northerner in a sense. Like so, I think it isn't really like the size thing. It's more like, do you have it in you to get out of your box, get off the line? Like De Gea was glued to his line the whole time. So anyone would be an upgrade for me personally at this point.
Yeah. Another player he referenced was Maguire in his interview. He obviously was asked about where his future is and the lack of game time, and he answered. He said that Maguire trains really well, always at the best level, 100%. So he said he handles that situation well and in a manner. As a captain would, and he's an important figure in the squad in terms of his captaincy. He said, let's say I'm happy that he's here and we need him with the job he does. But he said, but it's also a decision that he has to make when it comes to his future. So again, like on De Gea, couple of mixed messages there. So I guess we'll start with you, Steve. What do you think? Is a true meaning behind those comments, and where do you think Maguire's future lies?
I think not at United. I think a captain needs to play. He's made 16 appearances in the league this season, I think, and that's just not enough for a captain of a Premier League club. His future lies elsewhere. He can't really be relied upon too much. It's almost become a bit of a joke now, unfortunately, and it's obviously not nice to see. But for that amount of money, hopefully we can recoup some of it. I think if we can get anywhere close to 35 or 30 million pound this summer, then I'd take it. He made a mistake in the Fulham game, leading to the penalty. He gave the ball away really cheaply, and they just went and countered and won the penalty. So he's just not at the United standard. He might train really well. He might be reliable in his kind of fitness, and he has had a couple of injuries this season, but he does tend to show up when we need him, but not to the standard that we do need him. Especially when he costs us goals and costs us games, that mistake in the Sevilla game, notably. So I think, it's best for all parties if we can get something done quickly, get a bit of money, and hopefully he can fit into a really decent club as a solid player for them and get the appearances that he deserves, really.
Yeah, and I think. It kind of goes without saying. It's sometimes, you can just look at Ten Hag's team selection when he was playing Luke Shaw ahead of Maguire, left back ahead of a centre back. And to be fair, Shaw did a bit of a better job in most instances when he was playing. So yeah, I'm kind of with you. I don't think Maguire's kind of a long-term player at the club, and hopefully, again for him, for his sake as well, for him to play regular football, he gets moved on in the summer. Now, how much do you think we could get for him, Peter? Do you think there's what kind of fair price we could get in the market to add to the transfer kitty and war chest?
I think Steve said it, 30 to 35. I think just you snatch someone's hand off for that. It's a point, just get the wages off, get certain. It's just an awkward situation having the club captain being fifth choice centre back, and the fact he costs 85 million. So we're obviously not recouping anywhere near that, but maybe at a push 40 because he plays for England and the British tax and so on. But yeah, I think it's been clear for a long time that Maguire will be leaving in the summer. And to be fair to Ten Hag, like, he's never ever spoken ill against any player, not even Ronaldo. And even since Ronaldo's left, he's not really said anything about it. One, because there's a level of respect he has towards the players, and then two, if he's there bashing Maguire, like, it's not exactly boosting his price or anything. He's obviously going to say he trains really well, he's a great professional and so on. And I think that's kind of like recognised within the game. But I think it's pretty clear he's gone. And not only his comments like that were important regarding Maguire, like Southgate's comments after the England squad was named, he basically was saying him and Calvin Phillips, it's going to come to a point like you have to play. And no one will give Maguire more time than Southgate. But if he's running out of time with him, I think he's, like he said, like, if it's up to Maguire to make that decision, I think Maguire will definitely want to leave for his own like professional career, but also like his personal life has obviously been affected by we kind of replaced Phil Jones, like the figure of fun at the club. So I think, like Steve said, like, it's best for all parties, and thanks for a few years. And
he has to leave.
Yeah, he couldn't, for his own sake, he couldn't stick around because, like, and also there's the Euros is on next summer, so he has to be playing. So yeah, I think it's pretty obvious he's gone. It's just a question of where does he want to. Like, I don't know who he's not going to join a top 6 tean. Villa.
You go to Chelsea.
Just when you said where, he's a situation beggars can't be choosers. I don't think he's. I mean, I think a few clubs will come.
Yeah, no, I don't
think there's going to be a plethora.
I don't know who exactly will go for.
I think he could suit
the
Tottenham.
Only issue is,
I think he's a. I mean, he's a 3 at the back system player. I think he's an old school centre back where he's got no real mobility. He's just more of a kind of win the ball when it's in the air kind of defender. Not great with his feet. I know he brings it out a little bit, but yeah, he needs 2 other centre backs to play with, and I think Tottenham would be a decent shout for him if he wants to stay with a top club. But top club in
very promising Spurs. Yeah, I think a Maguire-Dyer centre-back combination is like the stuff of Spurs fans' nightmares. It would be quite funny if somehow we took their Harry and we gave them our Harry. Yeah. I think it's pretty obvious he's gone. And it'll be funny actually if we win the FA Cup. He will lift the FA Cup with Bruno if we win it. So it could be a Van Gaal round 2 scenario of basically sacked as you lift the FA Cup. Like, that's your last act.
Well, Van Gaal, right? A few years ago.
Another slightly good omen. Our last FA Cup was won by a Dutch manager, so we need all the good ones we can get at the moment.
And it's on a Saturday.
Yeah. Should have kept, and we should have kept Jesse Lingard for it as well.
Exactly. Right, moving on. I just wanted to highlight Rashford's season so far. Obviously, congratulations to him. He won the Sir Matt Busby's Player of the Year award, as well as the Players Player Year of the Award yesterday evening. But one thing I noticed outside the club, a lot of the pundits, etc., and BBC have released their own teams of the season, and I haven't seen him in any of those selections, whether it be Sky, BBC. Like I said, I saw one from Carragher, which is unsurprising, but also saw one from from Neville, and Neville picked Martinelli ahead of him. I saw a tweet which obviously I shared with you guys a bit earlier, and in all competitions, Rashford has got 41 goals and assists. I know, I think he scored 16 Premier League goals. I think that might be one reason he's been overshadowed slightly. But personally, when he was going through a purple patch earlier this season, there wasn't too many players that were better than him. And just to put that into perspective, so as I mentioned, he's got 41 goals and assists. In relation to some other top players and their best seasons, I mean, he's trumped, players like Robin, Sterling, Hazard, Son. Ribery's best was 32. That's the same as Robin. Mane's was 29. A lot of these players who kind of in their era were deemed as some of the best players in the world, he's kind of gone above and beyond, and we would be nowhere without him, one of the key crucial players. Do you think it's fair after all of that, in reflection of his results so far versus players like Martinelli, Saka, etc.? Would you also leave him out of some team of the year squads, looking at it kind of impartially, or do you think he's been hard done by? Steve, we'll start with you on that.
I think it's tricky because I think consistency, he did have that purple patch, as you say, but earlier on in the season, maybe not so much. And then in the last 10 or so games, especially in all competitions, not so much. So you can kind of see the arguments, obviously for and against. Obviously, being United fans, thinking, he scored so many goals and been so pivotal to our season, you can't ignore that. And I think if you're going to look at it objectively, he might be looking at like best of the rest. But yeah, I think the run that he went on in the middle of the season can't be ignored. And as you say, he's done so well, and he's been regarded as one of the best players in the league at the time. So I don't think anyone's ever mentioned Martinelli in terms of he's in the form of his life. He's one of the best players in the league. He's unplayable on his day. So yeah, you would really think, in fairness, Rashford should have made that, especially considering how he's been the last couple of seasons as well. But yeah, I think in terms of consistency, he had a bit of a slow start to the season, and he's ended the season quite slowly.
Yeah. No, that's fair enough. It's just like you said. I guess I said impartially. What are your thoughts? It's just, I guess, out of all the teams, right, we watch United the most, and just that patch that he did have, and some of the goals he scored. I mean, Barcelona away, obviously the City at home, that was a massive goal. But also Arsenal away, that was an amazing goal when he ran through 2 or 3 players and shot from outside the box. So I just felt he's just been slightly hard done by. Just feels like he hasn't had that bit of appreciation. Not to say that everyone should have selected him, but I was just a bit surprised that he wasn't in any. How about you, Peter? What do you think about that situation? And do you think it's fair that Rashford's been out of those kind of team of the year selections?
I think it really just, like Steve was saying, like it is in the moment. Like if that team, I remember people were doing teams of the season, like even my mates of mine were like, oh, like this is my team of the season so far, saying like mid-February, and Rashford was in like everyone's, and everyone was talking about like, oh, Rashford's in the running for player of the year and so on. And it just does it. People have like a very short-term memory, obviously, in football. They just think like, oh yeah, like who's playing really well right now, he's in. Like I would have said around like February time, like obviously Haaland and then Saka and Rashford would be your front three. Mm-hmm. But like look how like Kane scored 30 league goals for an awful Spurs team, so like it's kind of hard to ignore that. And it probably is the most goals anyone's ever scored with a top scorer in a top flight English like division. So yeah, it's just hard. There's been a lot of good forward players, and then you're kind of like, are you picking Saka? Are you picking Rashford? Saka's been Arsenal's best attacker. Arsenal did come second and like a significant amount of points ahead of us. So it's just like, I don't, yeah, it's unlucky in a sense, but I think, yeah, like he has scored like he scored so many winners for us, but I think it's just a matter of he just didn't. If he was in the form that he was in 3 or 4 months ago, right now, he'd obviously be in everyone's team.
Yeah.
So, I don't think he particularly will care too much.
Yeah.
He shouldn't really care because there always is there is a anti-United bias amongst media, obviously someone like Carragher, but just in general, because most of these guys were playing in the 90s and the early 2000s, so I don't think that big a deal. I think he seemed delighted with winning the 2 awards himself at the club, and he mentioned himself, and I actually looked it up. He said he was the first time like he mentioned it was a long time since an academy player had won it, and it was 26 years. Beckham was the last one to win it, and it's only been running since 1988. So obviously you don't have like Best and Charlton and so on, but it's just him, Mark Hughes, and Beckham. So it's pretty good company to be in. Wow. And I think he'll just be like, I've come from absolutely, like he was like rock bottom last year, and now he's recognised by the fans, by the club, by the players as like, you've been our best player. So I don't think he shouldn't care too much what my pundits have to think of him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, credit to him. I mean, this time last year, if you were going to say to me that, Rashford's going to be the best player in our team and we're going to sign Casemiro and he's still going to be the best player, I'll be honest, I don't think I would have agreed with you based on the form he's had over the last couple of years. So again, massive congrats to him. Really picked up his game. And yeah, next thing is just to get his contract signed, I guess. Just another point whilst we're on it, I think another thing is maybe because when he did score goals, they were mainly in just ones, I think, in games. I don't really remember him, scoring. Definitely hasn't scored a hat-trick. But, obviously how the strikers would score 2, 3s, etc. And I think maybe that's why he's been slightly overlooked as well, because when he was in that patch, he was just scoring the one-off goals, to win those games. So anyway, let's see how things crack on. And I mean, like I said, the main thing is to get that contract signed, and might be a sweetener if he gets the winner on Saturday. Just a couple of other points, obviously, we wanted to mention. Seems like this year we've been slightly hard done by in the kind of referee department, specifically when it comes to a few dangerous tackles. Obviously, Casemiro has picked up a couple of red cards. Bit of a surprise considering that he didn't have one in his Real Madrid career. And against, obviously, Eriksen missed some time out because of an absolute disgusting challenge on him by Andy Carroll, but also Garnacho, and now from the game on Thursday, I don't think it was even a foul given by the referee when Anthony unfortunately got subbed off and is out for a couple of months. It's a point before we started that Steve picked up on. Shed a bit more light on that, Steve. I mean, what are your thoughts on those points?
Yeah, well, every single one of those challenges were a scissor tackle. Andy Carroll didn't get the ball. He didn't get anywhere near the ball, and he just completely scissored under him. And that was the only one that was actually given as a foul. So he was unpunished. It was a foul. It wasn't even a yellow card. He got sent off in that game, but for 2 other yellow card challenges, which is ridiculous. But yeah, the other 2, Garnacho, he got slid in by Kyle Walker-Peters in the Southampton game at home, which we drew 0-0, and then followed through as a scissor challenge. Again, unpunished, wasn't a foul. I know he got the ball, but he got a hefty chunk of the man. As well as the other day, Trevor Chalobah going in on Anthony, gets the ball and absolutely wipes out the man. And I think with the scissor tackles, when they get the ball, their body comes through and their whole weight comes and gets the player. And a lot of the time, it's kind of trapping their foot underneath the whole weight of the player. And I think it's really dangerous. I think something really needs to be sorted with those kind of tackles, at least being fouls, if not yellow cards, because they are so dangerous. and we've really suffered 3 times this season. And who knows if those challenges, maybe not this one recently on Anthony, but if that challenge on Eriksen didn't happen because of the amount of punishment it should really get, he may well have got away with playing a few more games this season. Same with Garnacho, and that really could have pushed us on potentially in the Sevilla game and maybe some others to push a little bit further on in the league. But yeah, I think they're really dangerous, quite reckless, and I think something really should be done about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I personally think there should be some kind of legislation in place, similar to if you have 2 feet off the ground and you go into a tackle. Like you said, scissor tackles, they're fairly dangerous, and players, typically they know what they're doing. But even outside of that, I mean, throughout the season, there's been so many challenges from other players with their studs up, even getting other players on the head, all this kind of stuff with their foot up, and they've gone kind of missed completely. And you just think in the day and age of VAR, how are other teams, other players getting away with this when, I think one of Casemiro's red cards was when he lashed out. So, I mean, there's not much you can do about that. The other one with the tackle,
he got the ball.
A bit 50-50. Yeah, exactly. He was a little bit high, but he got the ball.
He tickled the guy's shin with his studs. He went down. The player went down very dramatically. If you're looking at it in the rules right now, yeah, it's a studs up tackle. He grazed his shin, but we've been caught a few times this season, and I think most recently in the Villa-Liverpool game a couple of weeks ago, Tyrone Mings got away with a stud halfway up someone's leg. Nowhere near the ball. Jota as well has studded someone in the face recently for Liverpool and got away with it. And you just think that tackle from Casemiro was absolutely no danger to anyone. Yeah, he caught his shin, but he's got straight back up the player. The game carried on. The ref didn't even give a foul. So it's it's just one of those where the dangerous tackles, the ones where people's full weights are really connecting with players, should really be the ones which are being punished, not so much little kind of grazes and if it might look bad. But yeah, I think it's just a bit of inconsistency by refs.
Yeah, it's just slightly strange how, like I was saying, those decisions go against you and other clubs and other players, the ones you referenced, basically kicking players in the head and getting away with it. So yeah, hopefully that changes next season and we get a little bit more, equality when it comes to decisions across the board. Peter, as well, we were talking before we came on, obviously Leeds have been relegated, one of our rivals, no longer in the Premier League, and we won't have those derbies next year. Is that something you're going to miss, or are you happy that Leeds are down?
Yeah, massively missed them. I think bar the away game that was in COVID and there was no one there. Those 2 away games at Ellen Road in the last couple of years have been the quality isn't great, and but there is something about it being it feels like kind of going back in time and what football was like before it became uber commercialized. So I think it's a great rivalry, and there is always a different feel about it. It's extremely nasty and vicious, and I think it's something that you missed when it was away, and it was good to have it back. And now the only game we have with Leeds coming up is a pre-season friendly in Oslo, so that will boot off. But now I was sad to see them go in a sense of the rivalry, and they are a big club. They're part of the Premier League. I didn't want Everton to go down either. I just think it makes the league better when you have these clubs in. And then just from an Irish point of view, it sounds like I'm being a semi-Leeds fan. It's just from growing up, they always had a lot of Irish players and a few mates who support them. So I feel bad for them in a sense, but they definitely deserve to go down. They were awful. And it's quite funny, actually. I know we just mentioned Southampton there around the Garnacho challenge. We didn't win 4 league games at home this season. Obviously, we lost to Brighton and we had 3 draws. Newcastle, fair enough. And then we drew with Southampton and Leeds. They finished the bottom 2 in the league, which is quite weird looking back. I was actually at the Leeds game. But yeah, they're a nasty team with nasty fans, but they'll be missed. And hopefully it's not 16 years before they come back. But like the squad is so poor and they spent so badly that it wouldn't surprise me at all if they had a few years down in the championship.
Oh, very, the fan base I think is most probably split on Leeds, right? So
rather beat them than never play them. That's kind of
exactly. I guess that's one way of looking at it. But I think, but yeah, it's like you said, always good to have rivalries. Always good to have rivalries, and another thing that they have is an old school football ground, right? There's only a few of them left, so it's always good to turn up and have those kind of away days.
I saw a great picture of Luke Ayling crying, and I was so happy seeing that. Just plainly because in the Leeds game away, he spent the whole game trying to absolutely snap Garnacho. All he did was just try and go through him, and it was so good to see him just crying his little eyes out. I just loved it.
Yeah. The point you made there, Harry, about the old school ground, well, it's getting replaced by the oldest of them all. Like that, it's obviously going around social media a lot. But Kenilworth Road will be Luton's ground. Will be interesting. It'll just be like you thought that Bournemouth's ground was
10,500,
not kind of fit for purpose for Premier League. It'll be when United go to Luton, it'll be an interesting one. I would not want to be. I really wouldn't want to live in one of the houses beside that. Away entrance, because
I was just going to say, I'm sure everyone's seen the video, right, of the stairwell that goes above like everyone's back gardens in the street. It's pretty hilarious. I mean, saying that though, back in the day, the first ever game I went to was at Highbury, and I don't know if you guys ever went down there, but it wasn't as, I don't want to say as bad, but it was pretty similar. They used to have on one end of the ground, they used to have a row of terrace houses, and in the middle they literally just bought one of them, converted it into a turnstile, and it said "Welcome to Arsenal Football Club." And there used to be a turnstile literally going through someone's house, which it's because it was so tightly packed around there. So
I do prefer
definitely be an interesting and away ground to go to next season. One last point I just wanted to finish on. Some interesting news came out today with Edwin van der Sar leaving Ajax. Obviously, with a potential takeover happening with us, there may be a position for him at the club. Do you think it's just by coincidence, or do you think maybe there might be something more substantial to it and a potential move to Old Trafford? What do you think, Steve?
I don't know. I think it's probably just a bit of a coincidence. Ajax have had a pretty bad season. I think they're not going to be in the Champions League next season. So I think if the powers that be at Ajax think that they need some new direction, then fair enough. It comes at a bit of a time of uncertainty for United, who might be taking over and then putting people in place. Obviously, Van der Sar's worked with Ten Hag before to quite a bit of success. So who knows?
Yeah. How about yourself, Peter? Welcome Van der Sar to Old Trafford.
If that happened, it'd be absolutely fantastic. And like Steve mentioned, like the working relationship with Ten Hag. But it is kind of an easy, like maybe it's just all coincidence. It's very hard to know with the takeovers and everything that's going on. What should you actually read into? I think he said he wanted a break, so it's just hard to know. But it obviously, if we got him back, it would be the dream. I know that the Qataris were linked, saying that they'd bring back some ex-players into roles. He's literally the only one that you'd want anywhere near running anything to do with the football club. So I don't want Qatar, but I'd like Van der Sar under different owners. Like that.
Right. Good stuff. Well, I guess that nicely reaches us to an hour, and that's this week's podcast done. Join us again next week, back on a Monday, as we usually are. And I'm sure there'll be lots to talk about off the FA Cup final. Hopefully, we could, we'll all be here jubilating But let's see. So it's goodbye from me from this week, and look forward to catching up with everyone next week. Take care.
So yeah.
Cheers.